What is good, everyone? Welcome to X Chapter channel. Tonight I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, a reaction video. And this is inspired by an episode that I did about 3 weeks ago where I asked the question, do I watch other Japan YouTubers? And the short answer to that question is no, I don't. You see, I'm not the target audience of those YouTubers. I live in Japan, so I'm not really consuming their content. But after thinking about it, I realized that I really should be watching their content because there are some really good Japan YouTubers and they are producing a lot of content and they have a lot of subscribers and they get a lot of views on their videos, so I could certainly learn something by watching their videos. And at the very least, I could get some ideas for some topics that I could bring back to this channel. So tonight's reaction video is Abroad in Japan channel's video, what English teaching is really like in Japan. And I chose this video for 2 reasons. The first is Abroad in Japan. That channel is a gold standard YouTube vlogger about Japan. And the second reason is it's a topic that I'm actually an expert on. I feel like if I'm going to do reaction videos, I should do it on something that I'm actually an expert about. And I've been teaching English in Japan for over 15 years. I've taught in Japanese public schools at the junior high school and elementary school level. I taught in a cram school, which is juku in Japanese. It's where students go when they need more help on a particular subject. And I've been teaching 12 years now at the university level. So the only level that I don't have direct experience is high school. I think I'm qualified to maybe have something to say about this video. So without further ado, let's take a look. And please, before I get started, remember to hit like and subscribe if that's something that you want to do. If you really genuinely like the video and you want to subscribe to my channel and get more content, please do so. Alright, let's go.
I found this book at the back of my cupboard yesterday. It's a book filled with goodbye messages from Japanese students I used to teach. I got this in my last week as an English teacher. Now, I don't want to brag too much, but you'll get a sense of what a great English teacher I was and the positive impact I had just by reading out a few of these messages. We've got one here from Yuka who says, "Dear Chris, hello Chris. Thank you so far. It was always fun." Of course it was. "Watch for a body. It will become big. VIP to big." What? This was written, 4 years ago, and I still don't know what that means. I mean, to me, VIP to big sounds like a chronically overweight rapper.
When I did classes in junior high school at the end of the school year, I would always get these placards or little booklets of messages from my students, so I can totally relate to this.
But perhaps it is alluding to the fact that at the time I was teaching, a lot of students and teachers were worried that I was putting on weight just because my diet was pretty awful. It does seem to be a recurring theme amongst a few of these messages. Got one here from Karen who says, "Dear Chris, thank you for teaching English until now. It was fun to be able to club together. It's important to point out for legal reasons, I didn't go clubbing with underage students. She is just referring to the after-school English club." And she continues, "Please be stomach much more healthy in the future." Please be stomach much more healthy in the future. Well, I did heed her words. I'm not yet entirely stomach, but it's just nice, you know, reading through these heartwarming comments. Reminds me of a simpler time, a time when I used to teach English in a room to thousands of students.
Yeah, the English was invariably interesting, but you always understood what the students were trying to say, and I'm absolutely never going to shame students for trying to do their best English on something like this. And to his credit, he's not shaming them, he's saying he got the idea, and yeah, he's being very kind and paying attention, and he's always got a lot of good humor on his channels.
And today, given that I've discovered lots of stuff from my past, I thought I would discuss teaching English in Japan because it's a popularly requested topic, and I've got a lot of stories and experience from my time teaching with over 2,000 hours of classroom experience that I can draw upon. I'm not going to hold back on my opinions today on the teaching methods, the teachers, the students, the environment. I'll try and cover it all.
He's not going to hold back. Good, this should be interesting.
so you know what you're getting into if you should follow a similar path. Now, I'll be open up front about the fact that I didn't come to Japan because I was excited about the prospect of teaching English. Like 80% of people, I came to teach English in Japan because I was excited about the prospect of living in Japan.
I just watched another YouTuber's video, actually. Having said I don't really watch Japan YouTubers, but I just watched a video where it was a guy giving advice saying that, you know what, if your avenue to come to Japan is teaching English, but it's really only about being in Japan, you might end up with a relatively disappointing experience. Perhaps the fact that I wanted to be a teacher from the outset has been part of why I'm still here 15 years later. Obviously, in the case of Chris, he's still here as long as, I don't know how long he's been in Japan, but obviously he stayed here beyond the English teaching gigs. So it's not necessarily the case that you won't be able to move on from other things from your English teaching, but I do know a lot of people who kind of get trapped into it and for whom English was a means to get here, and then they just end up kind of paddling, like treading water.
Rare defence. I did take a short course on teaching English as a foreign language at my university, and my degree was in business and English linguistics. So, you know, I can speak really good English words. I know all the most best words that there are, that there is.
I wish I had a sense of humor like his. I mean, I have a sense of humor. I wish it came through on my channel more. I tend to be a little too serious. Maybe that's a point I need to pick up.
This bunch of torn and tea-stained documents. Why is there tea stain on it? This is my original JET application, my application for the Japan Exchange Teaching Programme, which I also discovered at the back of my wardrobe. I didn't even know I had this still. Now I know the criteria.
Yeah, I came here on the JET program. That was my first window into Japan. For me, I was just looking to go abroad somewhere and teach. It wasn't about Japan per se, so I'm a little bit different than a lot of people who come to Japan to teach English. I was looking to go abroad and teach somewhere, and it just happened to be Japan in my case because I was accepted to the JET program. Absolutely the Cadillac program for becoming an ALT in Japan. You're sponsored by the government. So many things are taken care of for you. If you can get in the JET program, it's a great way to come and experience Japan.
Getting on the JET program or getting a job teaching English in Japan, I can see that my application has none of those things. I mean, it's so bad that I even wrote about a holiday that I had in Dubai as an example of culture shock and how I'd be able to adapt to culture shock in Japan. I was culture shocked by Dubai because it was hot and there's lots of sand. And I hate sand. That's not even culture, that's just a geographical fact. And for the section on Japanese language ability, yeah, it's just blank, there's nothing there. Nevertheless, with my wealth of cultural experiences, I got on the JET program. I somehow passed the application process and I ended up with the role as an ALT, Assistant Language Teacher. And I got placed right here in a beautiful rural area where absolutely nobody feels the need to know English. Now,
Sounds a lot like my experience. I was in Yamanashi Prefecture, so also a rural area.
I had a lot of people criticise the JET programme over the years because they say that that money invested in the foreign teacher could be spent on Japanese teachers, it could be spent elsewhere in better ways. But Lord knows they need more foreigners in rural Japan. I once dated a Japanese girl from that town, and when it came to meeting her mum had never met a white person before, despite being 50-something. So I met her, and she was actually so scared of me that she hid behind her daughter. She was scared as if I was some sort of rabid dog who would rip her arm off, which, you know, I wouldn't do that. That's not the sort of thing I would do.
Yeah, I was in Yamanashi, so the Fujizan tourism was pretty robust, so I was not that rare as a foreigner there as he's describing here.
To be fair, I did think about going along with it and being like, oh yeah, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. But I didn't do that because I'm not mental. The senior high school where I worked had about 1,200 students. It was pretty big, and they were all aged 16 to 18. Within that school there were about 12 English teachers and 120 teachers in general. And I quickly found out when I arrived that of the dozen teachers that I was going to work with, only 8 of them actually spoke English. The others had somehow slipped the net. And I don't mean they spoke English badly, I mean they just genuinely really struggled to communicate in English, which was quite a surreal situation to be in. I never held it against them. They were all over 50 years old, and I suspect when they did apply to teach English, the extent of the language test must have just been, what is your favourite colour? Red. you're in. However, one of the things...
So, okay, obviously difference between this channel and mine is he does a lot of funny anecdotes in between, so I don't tend to do that on my own channel. There are a lot of teachers who were studying English literature and they kind of went through the education program and they're like, okay, you should be an English teacher because you have that English literature experience. And that doesn't mean that they've spent much time actually learning communicative English. And also, I was pretty shocked when we had student teachers in the junior high school where I worked. The student teacher experience, like the actual practicum hours spent in the classroom, was about 2 weeks. And when I did my student teaching back in the States, that was an entire semester of student teaching plus an additional 1 month practicum in an entirely different school. So I came out with about 5 months of practical teaching experience as a student. I had the same experience. I had 5 teachers that I worked with in my school and 3 of them were fantastic. Another 2 teachers that I worked with, yeah, it was just hard to even communicate with them, much less get much accomplished in the classroom with them. And the students knew too. The students were right on top of this. The teachers who really had good English and good communication ability in English, their classes were well run and they were well respected by the students. The 2 teachers who had really low level English skills basically got kind of run over in the classroom. So I'm not saying that one necessarily caused the other, that's just how it happened to be in my situation.
that I'd been taught during my long, tedious induction in Tokyo during the first week was that you should never correct a teacher in front of the classroom lest you undermine them and make them look inferior in front of the class. So I spent my first few weeks conflicted, dying inside, because I wasn't sure if stepping in and telling the teacher that they were wrong would destroy my fragile relationship with my colleagues early on, which is really important. So let's do a 10-second pop quiz and see what you would do. Choose your own adventure. A, ignore the situation and carry on, or B, tell them it's wrong and change it. Answer now. Well done, the answer's B, because what's the point of even being there if you're going to stand in the corner and do nothing? And you know what?
It's a tricky situation that a lot of us ALTs found ourselves in. Do we countermand what the teacher was doing, or do we correct them? What I often did was talk to the teacher between classes and say, okay, actually it really should be this, and then we would correct it for the next class. And so it wasn't done in front of the students.
Really awkward, and the whole room just went silent straight away. The teacher had to jump in and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry about this. Everybody stop laughing. But it made me realise why students often don't try to make mistakes. Why stand out and get laughed at? Well, you can just keep your head down and do nothing. Fortunately, that experience did happen early on. And for the next 2 years, whenever a student put their hand up or took a risk, regardless of whether they got the question right or not, I would encourage them or reward them. I'd give them a high five. I'd say well done. Anything to show that to try and fail is an important part of language learning. I wanted them to adopt a risk-taking mentality, the sort of risk-taking mentality you'd expect from someone like Nick Opoku-G.
Not a lot of risk-taking in Japanese classrooms, so yes,
I didn't want
rewarding
students to feel
it is
intimidated when coming
something I
over to
definitely
me
do.
and just chatting with me in the corridor. I didn't want to repeat of my ex-girlfriend's mum, by all accounts. And because they were senior students on the brink of making big life decisions, I loved chatting to them about their dreams and aspirations in life. I remember one time we did a lesson on life goals, and as an initial example I talked about how when I was a kid, when I was your age, I wanted to be James Bond, but unfortunately for various reasons that didn't work out. And the class genuinely felt sorry for me that I'd not been able to fulfil my dream of becoming a fictional character. Nevertheless, the next day I went to the staff room and I went to my desk and I found this on it. It's a poster for the James Bond film Skyfall. There's a little note on it that says, "Dear Chris, I think you can still make it. Don't give up your dream. Not to regret. From Bond Girl."
That is a beautiful story. Those little things that happened, I had a few things like that happen to me, and students that would just make these cute and really wonderful gestures. That was one of the things that made teaching in the Japanese junior high school pretty amazing.
How amazing is that? I mean, this alone just shows you how awesome the students are. And you know what? Every day I look at this poster on the wall and I know if I believe in it hard enough, my dream of becoming James Bond still won't come true. Objectively speaking, was I a good English teacher? Of course I f***ing was. I made a magazine, didn't I? No, in my first year I was awful. I lacked experience, I lacked confidence, and I spent far too much time sitting in the staff room at my desk with my head down. But by my second year, I could just walk into a classroom at a moment's notice and conjure up a lesson plan out of thin air. I knew dozens of...
That is the 3-step method of lesson planning. 3 steps from the classroom door, you come up with your idea.
Of students on a first name basis, and I got on really well with all the teachers. All in all, I really did love the job by my second year. And the teachers did a fantastic job of making you feel way more important than you actually were. I remember in my second year, I had to go and get the contract for my new year from the intimidating but undeniably suave school principal. And he handed me the contract, the paper contract, like this, as if he were bestowing me with a legendary sword of some sort. And he looked at me and he said in perfect English, for the first time I'd heard it, he said, "We need your help again." And I said, so I took the paper and it was spectacularly theatrical. I felt like a samurai who had just liberated a town from ruthless bandits. It's still the closest I've come to having my last samurai moment. So unsurprisingly, I signed up for a third year after that. But unfortunately by that point the school principal had left and we had a new school principal who wasn't quite as dramatic.
School teacher turnover is one of those weird things about Japan. They have a system where the teachers shift in and out of schools every 3 to 5 years. It's unusual for a single teacher to remain teaching in the same school for more than 5-6 years. They have this rotation system, and as a result, like, I've always thought about going back to the junior high school where I taught as an assistant language teacher, but there really isn't any point because there isn't going to be anyone there that I know in all likelihood. It's one of those things you can't go back and visit and find the same people and talk with the teachers that you knew back then because they've all been transferred somewhere else. It's kind of unfortunate that.
And he handed me the paper and he said, "Go and teach English." And I went, "Yeah, all right then." Suffice to say, I didn't sign up for a 4th year. But fundamentally, by that point, I'd done everything I could, and I no longer felt like I was pushing myself or challenging myself anymore. And a lot of my favourite students had graduated and moved on, and I felt like it was time for me to move on as well. If you do ever teach in Japan, though, do hold on to, things like this, because reading over comments like
I've got all mine.
This book did take me back to a time in my life that brought me a lot more joy than I ever realised. Spending my time alongside fantastic teachers and students who made every day worth going into work. I can't say whether or not I had any real impact as a teacher, but I'd like to think for the 2,000 or so hours that I stood there in front of the students in the classroom, I at least made their time studying the English language just that little bit more bearable.
I believe so.
If I could go back in time to 2011 and meet my past self writing this JET application form in the university dorm, would I tell him to go through with it? Absolutely. I would tell him it's going to be worth every minute of it. I would tell him it's going to change it for the better. I would tell my old self, and perhaps above all,
do it.
I would tell him not to put his fucking cup of tea on the application form because that's just an absolute disgrace, isn't it? So those are just a few stories from my 3 years as a teacher. I will be talking about more.
Yeah, very different take to this channel than mine in terms of that was not really an in-depth look at what teaching English in Japan is really like. It was more just anecdotes of his experience with humor, and I can see it's enjoyable to watch. It's light. It gives you this kind of nice image of what it might be like to teach as an ALT in the JET program, and I certainly was able to relate with a number of things that he said. So yeah, it was a good video. I think if I was looking for a video on what teaching English is really like in Japan, I'd want personally a little more in-depth information on what to expect and what to look forward to and what pratfalls to avoid than just a few anecdotes. But yeah, it was very entertaining. Thank you so much for watching this reaction video. I might continue to do these reaction videos in the future, and if I do, I will always try to choose topics on which I am actually somewhat of an expert in. Please stay tuned, and I will look forward to seeing you in my future videos. I drop a new one every single Friday about Japan life and culture, and thank you so much for watching this one. If you've made it this far, remember to hit that like and hit the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.